Content 5 is risk control. Control is the eliminations or inactivations of hazard in manner such that the hazard does not pose a risk to workers who have to enter into an area or work on equipment in the course of scheduled work. Hazard should be controlled at their source. The closer a control to the source of the hazard is, the better. Based on the hierarchy of risk control, at the top of the hierarchy is eliminations. So this is the most priority to use for control the risk. Elimination is getting rid of a hazardous job, tool, process, machines, or substances is perhaps the best way of protecting workers. For example, a salvage firm might decide to stop buying and cutting up scrap bulk fuel tanks due to explosion hazard. The second level is substitute. Substitute is sometimes doing the same work in a less hazardous way is possible. For example, a hazardous chemical can be replaced with a less hazardous one. Control must protect workers from any new hazard that are created. The third level is isolate. Isolate if a hazard cannot be eliminated or replaced. It can sometimes be isolated, contained, or otherwise kept away from workers. For example, an insulated and air-conditioned control room can protect operators from a toxic chemical. The next level is engineering control. Engineering control is modifying tools or equipment. For example, redesign, automations, barriers, absorptions, and dilutions. Next level is administrative control. Administrative control is introducing work practice that can reduce the risk. For example, safe work procedure, supervision, training, job rotation, housekeeping, repair, maintenance, and hygiene. And the last level of risk control is PPE program. Personal protective equipment, PPE, and clothing is used when other control measures are not visible and where additional protection is needed. Workers must be trained to use and maintain equipment properly. The employer and workers must understand the limitations of the personal protective equipment. Care must be taken to ensure the equipment is working properly. Otherwise, PPE may endanger a worker's health by providing an illusion of protections. The last content is documenting hierarchy. Documenting process require instruction to team leader and person conducting a hierarchy with completing the hierarchy form. It is recommended to use a single form for each work process. Record the name and designations of hierarchy team members. Outline the process workflow and indicate in the form under process or location column. List all activities for each of work process under the work activity column. Identify the hazard associated with each activity and record in hazard column. Determine the effect of each hazard identified and record in effect column. Record any existing hazard control measure. Determine likelihood from table A and severity from table B for each hazard. The existing control measure should be taken into consideration while determine the likelihood and severity. By using risk matrix, assign one risk and record in risk column. Based on the risk assigned, recommend appropriate risk control measure. Assign a suitable person to implement the recommended risk control and indicate the follow-up action date and status. Repeat the hierarchy for other activities and process. Conduct another round of hierarchy after control measure have been implemented. And the last one, review hierarchy for every 3 years or whenever there are changes in process or activities.